Namo Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakaचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय अनंत कोटि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, I hope all you are doing well. Today we'll be reading from text chapter 3 from Nectar of Devotion. So if you have not listened our previous classes, please check out from our playlist. So before we start today, we will be praying first. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयोदीरये. जयो श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद. नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने. नमस्ते सरस्वते देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So let's begin. Chapter 3, Eligibility of the candidate for accepting devotional service. Eligibility of the candidate for accepting devotional service. On account of his association with Mahatma or great soul 100% engaged in devotional service of the Lord, one may attain a little bit of attraction for Sri Krishna, but at the same time, one may remain very much attached to fruitive activity and material sense of enjoyment, not be prepared to undergo the different type of renunciation. Such a person, if he has unflinching attraction to Krishna, become an eligible candidate for discharging devotional service. This attraction for Krishna consciousness is association with pure devotees is the kind of sign of the great fortune. It is confirmed by the Lord Chaitanya that only by the fortunate person, by the mercy of the both bona fide spiritual master and the Krishna, will get the seat of devotional service. In this, the connection Lord Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto 12th chapter verse 8, "My dear Uddhava, only by the exceptional fortune does someone become attracted to me. And even if one is not completely detached from the fruitive activity or is the completely attached to the devotional service, such service is quickly effective. Devotee may divide it into three classes. The devotee is the first or the uppermost class is described as follows. He is very expert in the kind of study of relevant scripture. He is also expert in putting forward argument in terms of those scripture. He can very nicely present conclusion with a perfect discretion and can consider the way devotional service in the decisive way. He understands perfectly that the ultimate goal of life is to attain transcendental loving service of one Krishna. And he knows that Krishna is only the object of worship and love. The first class devotee is one who is strictly followed the rules and rules and regulation under the training of the bona fide spiritual master and has sincerely obeyed him in accord with the revealed scripture. Thus, being the fully trained to preach and become spiritual master himself, he is considered first class. The first class devotee never deviate from the principle of the higher authority, and he attain the firm faith of the kind of scripture by understanding with all this argument. When we can speak the argument and reason, it means argument and reason of the kind of basis of revealed scripture. The first class devotee is not interested in try speculative method meant for wasting time. In other words, one who has attained a mature determination in the mature determination in the matter of devotional service can be accepted as a first class devotee. The second class devotee has been defined in the following symptom. He is not very expert in arguing on the strength of the revealed scripture, but he has a firm faith of the object. The purport of this description is that the second class devotee has firm faith in the procedure of devotional service unto Krishna, but he may sometime fail to offer argument and decision uh, on the strength and reveal scripture to the opposing party. But in the same way, he is still undaunted within himself as to it the decision that Krishna is the supreme object of worship. The neopath or third class devotee is one whose faith is not strong and who at the same time does not recognize the decision of the living scripture. The neophyte of faith can be changed by someone who with a strong argument or by the opposite decision. Unlike the second class devotee who also cannot put forward argument and the evidence from the scripture, but who still has all faith in the object. The Neophyte has no firm faith in the object, thus he is called the Neophyte devotee. Further classification of the Neophyte devotee is made in Bhagavad Gita. It is stated that the four class of men, namely those who are distressed, those who are in need of money, those who are inquisitive, and those who are wise, begin devotional service and came to the Lord for relief in the matter of the respective self-realization. They can go into the some places of forces and pray of God for mitigation of the material distress or some economic development or to satisfy their inquisitiveness. And a wise man who simply realized the greatness of the God is also counted among the neophytes. Such beginner cannot can elevate it to the second class or the first class platform if they associate with the pure devotee. An example of the noble devotee is the Maharaj Dhruva. He was the need of the other kingdom and therefore engaged himself in devotional service to the Lord. Then, in the end, when he was completely purified, he declined accept any material benediction from the Lord. Similarly, Gajendra was distressed and prayed Krishna for the protection, after which he became a pure devotee. Similarly, Sanak Sanatan, Sananda, Sanat Kumar were all in the category of the wise. Saintly kind of person, they are also attracted by the devotional service. A similar thing happened to the assembly of the Nemisharanya forest headed by the Saga Saunaka. The Saga was inquisitive and was always asking the Sutta Goswami about Krishna. Thus, they achieved the association of the pure devotee and become the pure devotee themselves. So that is the kind of way of elevating oneself. In whether condition one may be, if he is fortunate enough to associate with a pure devotee, even very quickly, it is kind of elevated to the second class to first class kind of platform. The four type of devotee can have been described in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. They have been accepted as a kind of pious without being pious. No one can come to devotional service. It is explained in the Bhagavad Gita that only one has continuously executed the pious activity and whose sinful reaction in life have completely stopped can take to Krishna consciousness. Others cannot. The neophyte devotee are also classified in four groups: the distressed, those who need money, the inquisitive, and the wise, according to the gradation of their pious activity. Without the pious activity, if a man is in the distress condition, he become an agnostic, the communist, or something like that, because he does not firmly believe in God. He think that he can adjust his distress condition by totally disbelieving in him. Lord Krishna, however, has explained in Gita that out of these four type of neophyte, that one who is wise very dear to him, because a wise man, if he is attached to Krishna, is not seeking to exchange the material benefit. A wise man who become attached to Krishna does not want any return from him, either in the form of his relieving his distress or in gaining money. This means that from the very beginning, his basic principle of attachment to Krishna is more or less love. Furthermore, due to his wisdom and study of the Shastra scriptures, he can also understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality God. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that after many, many births, when one become actually wise, he surrender unto the Vasudeva, knowing perfectly well that Krishna Vasudeva is the origin of cause of all cause. Therefore, he stick to the lotus feet of Krishna and gradually develop the love for him. Although such a wise man is very dear to Krishna, the other are can also accept it very magnanimous, because even though they are distressed or in need of money, they they have come to Krishna for satisfaction. Thus, they are accepted as a liberal, broad-minded Mahatmas. Without being elevated to the position of a Jnani, a wise man, one cannot stick to the principle of worshipping the Supreme Personality Godhead. The less intelligent or those whose intelligence has been taken away by the kind of spell of Maya are attached to different demigod on account of their influence of the mode of nature. The wise man is he who is truly understood that he is a spirit soul and not simply a body, because he realized that he is the kind of spirit, kind of Krishna is a supreme spirit. He knows that his intimate relationship should be Krishna, not with the body. The distress and the want of money are in the are the material concept of life, because the distress and need of money are both in relationship with the body. One who is inquisitive may be little about the distress and the man and the need of money still, but still he is on the material platform. But the wise man who is see Krishna knows perfectly well that he is the spirit soul or the Brahman, and the Krishna is a kind of supreme spirit soul or Parabrahman. The he knows that the kind of spirit kind of soul, being the subordinate and the kind of finite, should always kind of devote himself with the infinite or the supreme soul Krishna. That is the relationship of the kind of wise man with the Krishna. It can be concluded that a person who is free from all the bodily concept of life is the eligible candidate for kind of pure devotional service. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the Brahman realization, when one is free from the material anxiety, can see every living entity on the equal level. He is eligible to enter into devotional service. At the stage before, there are three kind of happiness: material, spiritual, and devotional. Devotional service are the happiness due to the execution are not the possible as long as one is the materially affected. If someone has a desire for material enjoyment or for becoming one with the supreme, these are the both considered material concept, because the impersonalist cannot appreciate the spiritual happiness of association and the exchange of loving affair with the supreme personality godhead. Their ultimate goal is to become one with the Lord. The concept is simply and the extension of the material idea. In the material world, everyone is trying to become the topmost head man among all these fellow men and the neighbor, either communally, socially, nationally. Everyone is competing to be greater than all others. In the material concept of life, this greatness can be extended to the unlimited, so that one actually can want to become one and the greatest of all, the Supreme Lord. This is also the material concept, although may be a little more advanced. However, the perfect spiritual concept of life is completely knowledge. One of the constitutional position is one who knows that enough to devote himself to transcendental loving service of the Lord. One must know that he is finite and Lord is infinite. Thus it is not possible to actually become one with the Lord, even if one aspire for this. It is simply not possible. Therefore, anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses by becoming more and more important, either in the material senses or in the spiritual senses, cannot actually can release the really sweet taste or devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore compared processing of bhukti, material or mukti, liberation, desire, with being influenced by the black art of witch. In both cases, one is in trouble. Bhakti means material enjoyment, or mukti means to become free from the material anxiety, to become one with the Lord. This desire are compared to being haunted by ghost and witch, because while this aspiration for material enjoyment or the spiritual oneness with the Supreme remain, no one can release the actual transcendental taste of devotional service. A pure devotee never care for liberation. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed to Krishna, "My dear son of Nanda, I do not want any material happiness in the shape of many followers, not immense opulence in wealth, not any the beautiful wife, nor do I want the cessation of the material existence. I may take many births one after another, but what I pray from you is that my devotion unto you may always remain unflinching." The attention of the pure devotee is so much attracted to glorification of the Lord pastime, name, quality, form, etc., that the devotee does not care for mukti. Sri Villamangal Thakur has said, if I am engaged in devotional service unto you, my dear Lord, then very easily I can perceive your presence everywhere. As far as liberation is concerned, I think liberation stand at my door with folded hand waiting to serve me. To pure devotee, therefore, liberation and spiritual emancipation are not very important thing. In this connection, the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 25, verse 36, Kapil Deva has advised his mother Devoti as follows: My dear mother, my pure devotee are charmed by seeing my different form, the beauty of my face, the structure of my body so enchanting, my laughing, my pastime, my glance appear to them so beautiful that their mind are always absorbed in thought of me. Their life are dedicated fully unto me. Although such people do not desire any kind of liberation or any kind of material happiness, still I give them a place among my associate in the supreme abode. This evidence of Srimad Bhagavatam gives a assurance to the pure devotee of being elevated to association with the Supreme Personality Godhead. Srila Rupa Goswami remarks in this connection that one who is actually attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna or his service, and what and whose heart by such attraction is always full of transcendental bliss, will naturally never aspire after the liberation which is so valuable to the impersonalist. A similar passage is also there in the third canto, fourth chapter, verse 15 of the same book, where Uddhava addressed Lord Krishna and say, My dear Lord, for person who are engaged in your transcendental loving service, there is nothing worth obtaining from religious, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Although happiness and from these different sources can be very easily had by them. In spite of such facility, my dear Lord, I do not aspire to achieve as such a result. My only prayer is that I may have unflinching faith in the devotion unto your lotus feet. A similar passage appear in the third canto, 35th chapter, verse 34, wherein Kapil Deva instructs his mother and say, My dear mother, devotee whose heart are always filled with in the service of the lotus feet, who are prepared to do anything for my satisfaction, especially those fortunate devotees who can assemble together to understand my quality, pastime, and kind of form, and thus glorify me congregationally and derive transcendental pleasure, therefore never desire to become one with me. And what to gonna speak becoming one with me if they are offered a post like mine in my abode, or opulence like mine, or even the personal association with me with similar bodily feature, they refuse to accept because they are satisfied simply by being engaged in my devotional service. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 9th chapter, verse 10, King Dhruva says, My dear Lord, that the transcendental pleasure derived by meditation upon your lotus feet, which is enjoyed by the pure devotee, cannot be approached by the transcendental pleasure derived by the impersonalist through self realization. So, how can the fruitive worker who at most can aspire to promotion to the higher heavenly planets understand you, and how can they be described as enjoying a happiness similar to the devotee's happiness? Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Here we concluded reading of the Bhaktivedanta purport from Nectar of Devotion. So I hope all have you understood. So let's go into the insight. Please listen till the end. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
What's the real difference between someone who just likes something and a true master? Whether it's music, art, or anything else, there's always a path from that first little spark of interest to deep, profound expertise. But what does that journey look like in a spiritual context? Well, that's what we're going to map out today. Think of this as your guide to the path of devotion, from the very beginning to a destination that might actually surprise you. All right, so here's the path we're going to walk today. We'll start with that initial spark of devotion, where it all comes from. Then we'll look at the 4 different kinds of people who start this journey. After that, we'll see how that early interest deepens into a really solid belief, and then finally, true mastery. And to wrap it all up, we're going to challenge the whole idea of a destination and ask, what's the real goal here anyway? So, where does a journey of devotion even begin? You might think it's a conscious choice, but our source material says it's more like a fortunate accident. This path seems to open up only through some incredible good luck and by coming into contact with people who are already deep into their own practice. And this initial attraction, it's framed as something incredibly special. It's not just a passing thought, it's a super rare and really fortunate event. The source actually compares it to planting a seed of devotional service. And that seed is so precious that it can only really start to grow when it's nurtured by being around those who are already devoted. Okay, so once that seed is planted, how does it start to grow? Well, it turns out not everyone comes to this path for the same reasons. The source actually points out 4 really distinct motivations for beginners, and honestly, they might surprise you. So here they are. You've got the distressed, the needy, the inquisitive, and the wise. Now, I know what you're thinking. Some of these sound pretty materialistic, right? But what's interesting is that the source considers all 4 of these starting points to be pious. And why is that? Because in their moment of need, or out of pure curiosity, they're turning toward a higher power for help, not away from it. And this right here highlights a really key difference. See, while everyone is welcome on the path, the wise seeker is called very dear. And that's because their journey isn't transactional. They're not showing up asking for something in return, like, hey, relieve my suffering, or I need some money. No, they start with this pure desire just to understand and to connect. Their approach is relational right from the get-go. So as these beginners keep going, no matter which of those 4 doors they came in through, their faith starts to change. It gets deeper, it gets more solid. And this brings us to what the source calls the second-class devotee, a stage that's defined not by how much you know, but by this unshakable conviction you feel inside. Think of it this way. It's like a musician who can play a piece of music with so much heart and soul, it just moves you to tears. They have this incredibly deep, personal connection to the music, but they might not be able to sit down and explain complex music theory to a critic. Their faith is just like that. It's powerful and totally unshakable from within, even if they can't defend it with a bunch of scriptural arguments just yet. And that, of course, brings us to the very top, the pinnacle of this path, the master. This is where that powerful, heartfelt faith gets combined with a really deep intellectual and spiritual understanding. And it's that combo that allows them not only to perfect their own practice, but to become incredible guides for other people. This is our master musician, right? They don't just play perfectly from the heart, they also understand the theories so deeply that they can teach it, they can defend it, they can even push the art form forward. The first-class devotee has this mature determination that's rooted in both a deep faith and a reasoned understanding of the scriptures. This chart just lays out the whole progression beautifully. You start out at that 3rd class or neophyte level. Here, faith is still a little fragile, it can be easily swayed. Then you grow into the 2nd class, where your faith becomes rock solid on the inside. And finally, you reach the 1st class, where that firm faith is combined with expert knowledge, making you a decisive and powerful guide for others. It's a fantastic roadmap. Okay, now we get to what is, for me, the most profound part of this entire journey. What is the actual goal? What's the destination? Well, the source gives us a pretty shocking answer by asking us to look past the goals that most of us think of when we think of a spiritual path. First, the text talks about the most common human desire there is, bhakti. This is that drive for material stuff, for worldly pleasure, for success. It's a totally natural place for many people to start, but for the advanced devotee, it's just a distraction. Next up, we have a much more advanced spiritual goal, mukti. This is the desire for liberation, freedom from suffering, breaking the cycle of birth and death. But get this, here's the big twist. The source argues that even this incredibly noble goal is ultimately an obstacle on the path of pure devotion. See, for a pure devotee, both the craving for worldly things and even the desire for your own personal salvation are seen as kind of selfish distractions. As long as those desires are hanging around, the Source says it's like you're under a witch's spell, and you just can't taste the real sweetness of pure, selfless devotional service. And this prayer from Lord Caitanya just captures the ultimate goal perfectly. The request isn't for more followers or for wealth or even for an end to rebirth. The prayer is simply that the devotion itself will never waver. The act of devotion is more valuable than any reward you could get from it. In fact, the Source says that for a devotee like this, liberation itself stands at their door with folded hands, just waiting to serve them. It's an incredible idea. And so this leaves us with a really powerful thought to chew on. This path completely reframes what we think a spiritual goal is. It suggests that the path isn't just the way to get to the end. For the truest devotee, the path, the simple, loving act of devotion, is the end.